contributed significantly to corporate law literature. A specialist editor for the 2015 edition of Ramaiya Guide. And for every company secretary, this Ramaiya is guiding factor, guiding path for every company secretary. Whosoever be, wherever be stuck, we just first open our Ramaiya. So she has contributed in this Ramaiya edition. General editor for multiple edition of MC Bandari Guide to Company Law Procedure. She has co-authored recently Handbook on Listing Obligation and Disclosure Requirement. She is guest faculty for so many universities. And she is regularly speaking at our platform, and I am blessed one. This is my fifth discussion with her. So really I am going to enjoy this session as well, along with you as a attendee of this particular program. Currently, she chairs the Governance Committee of Bombay Chamber of Commerce, Industry, and participate in various SEBI working groups. Honored with the Chavings Scholarship for Young Indian Lawyer, she interned with Richards Butler LLP in the UK, gained valuable exposure to the European law as well. Not only the Indian law, but she is expert of the European law as well. And next panelist we have today, again very renowned name, whosoever be dealing with the NSE. I think Aviskar is not new face for everyone, and he is also regularly visiting our platform, ICSI. He is serving since last 20 years in NSE and headed various departments such as investigation, surveillance, clearing, corporation, technology, and listing. So first one, that is investigation, and last one, listing. These two departments are very crucial for us. So in that way, he becomes crucial for us as well. So Mr. Aviskar is going to be deliberate on this LODR. He is trained in Six Sigma and specializing in training data mining models. He has been awarded CA Professional Achiever, awarded by Institute of Chartered Accountant of India. Aviskar is our member as well as member of Chartered Accountant Institute. So again, he is going to give lot of insight on this AI things and IT things, and what our companies is currently facing the issues while we are making a filing with the NSE BSE. Now again we have another panelist, Mr. Anjan Roy. He is by profession practicing company secretary, and he is holding, in past he is chairman of this ARC region only. So again 23 years experience he is possessing with him, and she has done a lot of things, secretarial audit, RBI due diligence, corporate governance audit, quarterly audit. These things he is doing on regular basis. He also appears before different benches of NCLT and CLAT, corporate litigations. He is expert on this particular area. Anjan Kumar Rai is a past chairman of this ERC. He was co-opted as a member of NCLT and Bankruptcy Subcommittee of Corporate Law Committee constituted by Ministry of Corporate Affairs in the year 2014-15. He was opted member of the NCLT Core Committee of ICSI under the chairmanship of Honorable Justice M.M. Kumarji. Everybody knows about M.M. Kumarji. He is the renowned name for NCLT. He was also a member of NCLT task force constituted by ICSI. So with short profile of every panelist, he is available before you to discuss on this LODR. And we people are going to put the question before all the panelists. And after the session, house is going to be open for you. Whatever question you people have, bring those questions before our panelists. And hope our panelist is going to satisfy you in whatever aspect you want. Thank you.
Hello. Good morning, each one of you. We'll start with the technical part of the program. I'll request Avishkar ji to first give the opening remarks on the topic from the regulator's perspective and what regulator thinks and expects from the professionals in terms of the regular updates into the LODR requirements and the updates which are coming, and we are looking forward to have different versions of the LODR also. So something guidance tips also there, so would request you to please share your opening remarks.
Good morning. Thank you ICSI and thank you President Sir for giving this opportunity. Just to start with, in the sense I am a big foodie, and recently my Facebook notification gave that 2 years back I was in Arslan, then Mishti Hub and all that way. And that very day I got a call from Bano saying that whether you will be part of this program. Why I'm just narrating is many of the times sitting outside, we believe that whenever a regulations changes, it is basically some regulator or someone thinking that there is a need for change and then the regulations changes. But if you see the reality, in the sense the way SEBI as a regulator or even exchanges who have been supporting them, how they have been working recently in the sense last 2-3 years is, wherever any regulation change is required, there's a committee which is called as Ease of Doing Business Committee, which is headed by Mr. Mohanty, who is the ex-WTM at SEBI. And wherever there is an implementation issue, then there's an industry standard forum, which actually goes in depth on what all needs to be, what all steps a corporate needs to do so that the compliance is achieved in a proper manner. So this particular process, once it's done, it again goes back to PMAC, the Primary Market Advisory Committee. Then the discussion paper comes out. Each discussion point, in the sense whatever suggestions you give or whatever remarks you raise in that particular discussion papers are again threadbare discussed, and then it goes to SEBI board. The SEBI board paper is also available in public domain to say what all the SEBI board has decided to in each of the particular matter and how that regulations have come out. And that's why that particular part, that it's only that meeting of minds, just there is some requirement and that's why a regulation has been brought in, it's a thing of past. Now again, coming back to what all are the current 4 areas, in the sense if I have to articulate what are the main areas or the focus areas of the regulator currently. The first and foremost is that it should be, we are not trying to punish a particular corporate. In the sense, the whole idea is that we endeavor to do things so that the compliance is achieved. Just to give an example, in the next 2-3 months, there is something called as system-driven disclosure for shareholding pattern, which will come up. So why this? Say every corporate on a quarterly basis is submitting the shareholding pattern. But there have been instances where the corporate has failed to give it, and then there's a penalty. Once the penalty is levied, then again we have to go in for the review committee and all that way. So the whole idea is whether we can use the technology itself, pull the data from the depositories so that there is no onus on the company itself to give this shareholding pattern. So the whole idea at this juncture is try to see how the non-compliances at the corporate ends reduce. Second and foremost point is whenever nowadays regulations come, today only we were discussing with Banu ma'am, when this Ease of Doing Business Committee met, the meetings were for 16 meetings took place and each running into 2-3 hours or sometimes the whole day. And whenever each point which has come in the 200 odd page document, each of them was with data. It's not dogma in the sense, say, whatever I believe this regulation needs to be changed. Like, say, example, if we want to add, say, expand it to woman independent director, we actually pulled the data to see how many companies are complying, what is that particular status, and then only it is forming a part of regulations. Then third point is, say, we are also looking at some sort of a maturity. Maturity in the sense, just to again give an example, BRSR, SDD or RPT. If we take any of the 3 points, we can have a whole day long discussion on that and we will not conclude by the end of the day. Because in, say, example, RPT, purpose and effect, we will not come to a final conclusion and all. But the idea is once that regulation is there, let it mature, let there be compliances in the sense, let the data flow in for 2 quarters, 2.5 years, or at least a year, and then we look at whether any regulations is required, any regulation change is required. Then the third and fourth and the most important point is about use of AI and RegTech. In the sense, just to give a figure, in the sense in our day-to-day activities, nowadays 2 to 3 hours are dedicated to this sort of meetings when we are trying to implement something for artificial intelligence and all that way. Now, we also face this challenge because we cannot have instances where we create a magic. Magic in the sense, just to give an example, in ChatGPT, today you type anything, you get an answer. And it may be correct, it may be 80% correct, 90%, whatever be that adequacy, means correctness and all. We as first level of regulator cannot be that. So that's why I use the term, we cannot believe on that magic. And that's why we keep on training our models and all to see how when we implement some changes on artificial intelligence, it is true and correct. So that is one major area where we'll be working on. And it has actually started also, we have started DRHP, the Red Herring Prospectus and all is the first area where we are looking at. Now just to conclude, this all transformative changes which are happening will actually be pain, because say whenever you change your skin and all, there will be some pain, but the new skin has to come up. And what we as an exchange or regulator will try to do in this case is intervene wherever it is required. And our numbers and everything is available in public domain. You can always approach us. But only thing is when you all ask for something, it has to be with data. Yeah, thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, we acknowledge the presence of CS Savitri Parekh. A huge round of applause, please.
Welcome. Welcome, Savitri Madam. In spite of all the challenges from the Microsoft server hacking, still you are able to complete your journey. So welcome to Calcutta. Madam, we have in your absence introduced yourself to the people. Though it is not formally required, but you have done this. Can we welcome with the bouquet? Planter, please.
I'd request CS Praveen Soni to please present a planter to CS Savitri Parekh.
Thank you so much, Avishkar ji. Anjan ji, I'll come to you on the giving the opening remarks on the topic first. Thereafter, I'll approach to Savitri Madam. Over to you, sir.
Respected dignitaries on the dais, dignitaries of the dais, very good morning to all of you. This is indeed a very happening phase in our country. When we see the stock market going beyond 80,000 Bombay Stock Exchange, and at the same time, the government also aims to make this country a developed country in the next 2 decades. And all efforts are aimed towards that. Our theme is also transforming governance for Viksit Bharat. Therefore, all the measures that are being taken have to be analyzed with the background, keeping in background the aim of developed nation. Now, why I am saying this, it is very important to understand that a developed country will have higher scale of operation. And our laws should facilitate that higher scale of operation. When we will discuss about omnibus approval, etc., we will see that whether the levels and the limits prescribed now are actually for Viksit Bharat. We have to look into all those angles. And this is a wonderful gathering where we have all the people who deal with these laws, who deal with laws applicable to different companies, and they are handling the implementation of the laws. So this is, according to me, the best place to analyze that. And last but not the least, when I saw the composition of expert committee, I was so happy. And this theme is actually the most apt theme for that, corporate CS transforming governance for Viksit Bharat. If we see the composition of expert committee, it is evident there that corporate CS are transforming the governance for Viksit Bharat. We have about 5-6 members in the expert committee who are our own members, including none other than Mr. Narasimhan, the president of the institute. So I have great expectation from all these changes, and I wish you all the best to all of you. We should be all part of this change. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anjanji. Thank you for the crispy remarks. Madam, we have heard Avishkarji's remarks on the topic, and from the regulator side, again from the Anjan Roy-ji, from a practicing professionals. Would like to know the industry perspective from you, but it can be said that yes, LODR आपने घोट के पिया है, nothing like that on you. So would definitely like to understand the challenges which industries are facing in terms of LODR compliances and the practicality of the same, and as well as the challenges which industry is facing, looking forward to the upcoming challenges into the provisions. Over to you, madam.
Thank you very much. A very good morning to all of you. And at the outset, I would apologize for my late arrival. The flight was a little late. Talking of the changes that have been introduced in LODR in the recent past, and as also was said by Anjan, it's in sync with Viksit Bharat. The finance minister in her speech had also mentioned about ease of doing business, to bring in simplicity, ensure that the cost of compliance is brought down. And I think we are moving in the same direction. For example, with respect to Regulation 30 disclosures, with respect to mainstream media, due to the industry standards note, a lot of clarity has been brought in. Similarly, with respect to Regulation 30, bringing in the thresholds, of course, there could be different ways of dissecting it, but I would certainly say that clarity brings in better compliance. And to that extent, it is certainly a move in the right direction.
Hello. Thank you, madam. We'll jump upon the question answers. We have got certain questions from the participants as well as from the virtual participants. Thousands of numbers are there. So would like to go upon the question answer session, ma'am, first. Avishkarji, I'll jump on the first question to you, which is based on the technology, and the industry is waiting for the same. When I'm talking about the recommendations to the exchange, an API-based integrated system of filing is to be developed, under which the filing done in one stock exchange will be automatically disseminated to the other stock exchange. So can you please explain how this will be lessening the burden on the listed entities in terms of saving cost, in terms of saving time, and lessening the compliance burden over the industries? Over to you, sir.
Right. So in my initial remarks, when I was talking about the non-compliances which typically occur and all, one of the non-compliances was of this particular nature, where, say, example, a particular filing used to go on one exchange and the other exchange used to not receive. The other exchange used to go and levy a penalty. Then there was a whole lot of process to be followed and all that one. So when we started this automation journey or the AI ML journey and all, what we tried to do is we decided to go it step by step, in the sense that first we go in for some sort of a digitization, automation, and then go in for this sort of implementations where, say, example, again, if I have to strictly say, this is all low-hanging fruits which we are at this junction implementing. So under this implementation, what we are trying to say is just that, say, you file it on one exchange, the other exchange will consume it, so that the compliance at the means it will be faster at the company's end. He need not be bothered about doing 2-3 filings in that 30 minutes odd window and all that way. And there's no sort of non-compliances also. So under this API, it's just simple that you file on one exchange, the other exchange will consume it, and it will be treated as compliance.
So are we expecting any timelines by which it's going
So
to?
this has come out as part of the suggestions, but by September end or so, we will be starting with 3 or 4 compliances in the sense which will get into this particular mode, along with the system driven. So what will happen is API and system driven will work hand in hand that way.
Many thanks, sir.
So a stage is set for further discussion, and as initial remark you heard from the regulator, industry and practicing. So summing up this initial remark, rumor again, market is regulated by rumor only right now, but it is not so, because regulator is ensuring the things, rumor cannot prevail, but still recently in past we have seen one big company of India, due to that rumor a lot of things happen in the market. So regulator emphasis is on the side, everything should come out in the market perfectly in a true sense. So coming to AR sir, uniform time, recently we have a changes in regulation 29. And regulation 29 is covered about the board meetings and so many points over in that particular regulation. So earlier we have different dates for different reporting things for that decisions. Now that things have become uniform. So what you think, how does this reduction in time period impact the decision making?
This suggestion was given by the expert committee. I was reading the rationale for this suggestion when it was given by the expert committee. The rationale is that the Indian capital market is now matured. The days are gone when the investors needed a long duration of, say, 5 days, 10 days, 11 days, etc., etc. Number one, the market has matured. That is the rationale of the expert committee. And also the digitalization of the system. So every information is available on the mobile phone of the investor, right at the simultaneously with the happening of the event. And therefore, 2 days is more than enough for the market to consume that. That is the rationale, and I agree with this. Number one. Number two, if we consider the Indian capital market as a whole, because this 2 days, 5 days are aimed at capital market. Indian capital market as a whole, we have investors who are informed investors. We also have investors who are not informed investors. I mean, we can understand that how many investors go back to the company website and stock exchange website and study about it before investing. That is number one from investor's point of view. But if we look at the ease of doing business angle, we also have to understand the difficulty in compliance. If we have uniform compliance system, 2 days, 48 hours, 2 working days, that is fair enough. If we have different compliance system, then the secretarial department will always be, engaged with compliance and compliance only, filing, etc. So we have to see from both the angles. That is my view.
Yes, please,
Sure.
ma'am. Your view also very much relevant for this particular regulation 29.
Sure. So I think it's a move in the right direction because let's assume there is a board meeting for consideration of quarterly financial results. A company earlier, before this amendment was required to give 5 days notice. It was not 5 working days, it was 5 clear days, excluding the date of the notice and the date of the board meeting, day of the board meeting. Now that has been reduced to 2 working days. So this actually gives a little bit of flexibility to the companies. At the same time, one should also be mindful of Secretarial Standards 1 as well as Section 173, which requires 7 days notice to be given. Of course, there is no bar on giving shorter notice, which is what LODR is now facilitating. While under Companies Act, you could have a meeting convened at shorter notice. That, with respect to the specific items where you're required to give 5 days notice, was not permitted. Now that has been facilitated. Of course, now it's working days, excluding the date of giving of the notice and the day of the board meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Further to that, Regulation 29, we can link it to Section 179 of the Companies Act. So, how these two regulations and section is sync in doing the compliance? Is it comfortable for the corporate or ease of doing perspective?
It certainly is ease of doing because you're actually going to give shorter notice, and less than that, in case of a listed company, is not a right practice. So if you were to look at it in terms of good to have, I would say this is quite okay.
Okay. So next question, continuation of this, ma'am, to you only. It is Regulation 30. So there is much talked regulation everywhere, because if you are not finding anything in any regulation, you can file it in Regulation 30. But materiality concept being here, so how corporates are going to find the materiality things, and what parameters are going to, before reporting this Regulation 30 things to regulator?
Sure. You mean Regulation 34, which has prescribed materiality thresholds. So these materiality thresholds are more relevant to Para B of Part 3, Part A of Schedule 3. Now, with respect to Para B, multiple companies had multiple thresholds. In order to ensure that there was a commonality of threshold, a threshold has been prescribed under Regulation 34. If you actually look at it in terms of the top 100 listed companies, and Avishkar can supplement me on this, you'll find that profitability, the net profit for the last 3 years, is the one which is the lowest of the three. And of course, in case of profit-making companies, which is what I'm referring to. So that threshold, if you were to look at it in terms of the turnover, may appear to be a small figure. That's a different point. But at the same time, there is certainty that has been brought in terms of what needs to be disclosed and what need not be disclosed. So in terms of compliance requirements, yes, Regulation 34, read with Schedule 3, Part A, Para A and Para B, the number of compliances have actually gone up. But when you look at it in terms of bringing in uniformity, this certainly adds in a dimension to it. There are, of course, issues like litigation or guarantees. These are points where there's been a lot of discussion and debate. And in case of litigation, there is, of course, a very clear provision which has been included in the circular of 13 July 2023, where it says that where in the opinion of the company, it is a case which is not likely to be in favor of the company. If there is a probability of the case being decided against the company, which basically means there's a probability of a liability on the company, then the disclosure requirements would arise. Let's say, for example, this is with respect to one of the companies where there was a huge demand and there was no disclosure. So that is the reason these provisions have also come into play. Of course, there are questions with respect to the routine demands of the revenue authorities, which our country always witnesses a high demand and eventually it goes down to a smaller number. But at the same time, when it comes to a law, you cannot have a customized one, and that's exactly the reason one will need to see as to what the probability is. But the simple test that I would say one should follow is see as to whether you're disclosing it as a contingent liability, because the accounting standards are fairly clear. If you are providing for it, 100% it requires a disclosure. If you are not providing for it in your books, but are showing it as contingent liability, it certainly means that there is a probability of this coming through, and therefore you will need to disclose it. But if it is not shown as a contingent liability, then subject it to the next test as to what is the probability and whether it requires disclosure or not.
I think, yes.
You want to add?
Just to expand on the two questions, in the sense that second and third one. In the sense, as I initial comments I said, when these committees are now meeting, they don't go on the dogma part of, they look at data and all that way. So when that particular point came on, why that 11 days, 5 days or 2 days notice and all that way. So when we tried to look back, there was no specific document also which we could actually gather on why that particular part also came on 11, 5 and 2. But when we looked at the data part of it, many of the times when that say that 11 days notice is required, when you change the terms, a whole lot of companies which are say below your top 500 and all, they were paying penalty because say the compliance officers typically understanding is 5 days, 2 days is there, 11 days typically skips out of his mind, and there were non-compliances and all that one. So that again became a part, and then we decided that we go in for this 2 days type of notice and all that one.
Avishkarji, I'll come on.
Praveen, he wants to
Yeah, Anjanji, please.
I would like to just add something to what ma'am said about Regulation 30, Sub-Regulation 4. See, from a secretarial auditor's point of view, it was always a problem for me also to understand while doing the audit, because so far as Para A, Part A, Schedule 30, Schedule 3 is concerned, everything is clear. But Para B, Part A, Schedule 3, it depends on the opinion of the board, subject to the opinion of the board. Now, if there is something, my opinion is that it is material, it should be declared as material. Opinion of the board is it should not be, or has not been declared. That problem has been resolved now. Now it is with definite thresholds, turnover-based, net worth-based, profit-based, on the consolidated audited accounts. So that eases a lot while making the decision. And last but not the least, there is always a provision in Regulation 30 that if other than these, in the opinion of the board, something is material, that has to be disclosed. So now I think the provision is more comprehensive and easy to implement. That is my view.
Thank you, Anjanji. It was a must to have an exposure from the secretarial auditor point of view also. Thank you for the same. Avishkarji, I'll come to you on one of the questions regarding the recommendations made for the recent facilities by the expert committee. So when I'm talking about the proposal from the expert committee for the curtailed link. So when the curtailed link, it has been advised to have a specific type of disclosure that can be uploaded by the listed entity on its website. That will be to facilitating of saving of time by efficiently finding and organizing the relevant contents. Can you please explain about the curtailed link and how it will provide a big relief to the industry and saving time, energy, cost on each and every time disclosures required by the law?
So this, if you go by this regulations, Regulation 46 provides that each listed entity has to maintain a website. And there are certain steps or provisions in the sense which it has provided on what all data point it has to provide. Now, the moment there is something in part of the regulations, the onus falls on the exchange also to look at whether there is this data is available, whether there's operational website available of that particular listed entity, whether all this data forms a part of that particular section and all that one. So typically what we try to do as exchanges and all, we try to put in some system called as this, which we call as robotic process automation, which actually goes, you click put your URL and it goes and sees whether your website is on or not that way. So that was the first part. But there are companies who say actually, if you see, they say that there's an annual report and you click and there's no annual report, it's a one-pager document or whatever that one. So the whole idea is was whether we should, there were two options to us, whether we build in some system which will go and check that document also to see that whether that document is complete, or look at other option. So what then came out with a meeting with the chairperson and all is that wherever the data has been submitted by the company to the exchanges, whether we can create that as a link and the company provides it on the website. So just to give an example, the company has provided shareholding pattern annual reports to the exchanges. It's there on the exchange website. So instead of the company going back and again updating the annual report or the shareholding pattern on the website of their website, they will just say that this is the NSC link where you can get my annual report, this is the BSC link. And that will actually reduce the efforts and the compliance part. In the sense we are looking at our compliances also, that gets reduced because the annual report, the moment you submit, we have done the adequacy, accuracy check of that particular document. So we have that assurance that the required documents are there. The second part, the policy part, which is part of that requirements, is not available with the exchanger because they don't get submitted. Here the way it will be done is the PCS, who is looking at the secretarial compliance, will give that assurance that whatever policies are required, it's there. So the approach is two-pronged. Wherever it's exchange submitted, it will be through curated link. Policies will be done by the PCS.
Correct.
I would just like to add that this is a very good move of providing curated links, especially with respect to schemes. I mean, I'm hopeful that that will be the next one, because the bulky documents which get uploaded very often leads to speed going down. So just a curated link where it's already there, it will definitely facilitate a lot of the compliances.
Right, madam. I'll come to question to you, madam, regarding the audit committee's post facto authority to approve the related party transactions, that is within the 3 months of the transaction or the first audit committee held after the transaction is done. And in fact, if it has not been done, then the board can cancel the transaction and make it an void ab initio. So the question comes out about these practices, whether it can be a general practice or how, because 3 months is a longer time as far as the listed or bigger companies are concerned. What check and balances can be adopted by the listed entities to avoid the misuse of the provisions and ensure that RPT transactions are undertaken in its genuine circumstances? Anjanji, I will take your view also on that from practicing side of the profession. After madam.
Sure. So I would say that this particular provision is in sync with section 188.3, where there is a provision for a post facto approval. Of course, the scope is limited. I'm not going to delve into that right now. But I would say that this is a move in the right direction, because taking approval, prior approval, is certainly a good practice. However, sometimes between the two meetings, if at all there are any transactions, the law is only facilitating it, saying that you can take a post facto approval. Now, the danger in a post facto approval is that the authority should also have the right not to approve, and in such an event, what happens? So, while the law may mandate, may not mandate, a good practice is always to ensure that you take prior approval to the extent possible. Where it is not possible to take prior approval, it should be one where the pullback would be possible. And secondly, it should not be one where if there is a rejection, it should not be a situation where you are not able to revert back to the original position. So that is something which each entity will have to very clearly evolve as to what kind of transactions. Let's say, for example, between two audit committee meetings, if there is a small transaction of purchase or sale of, let's say, in a company with a turnover of 100 crores, there's a transaction of 20 lakhs. Should they hold back that particular transaction or go ahead with the transaction? If it is one where they have in the past done a similar transaction, business should continue. Law is for supporting the business. Laws should always have guardrails which ensure that there is no misuse, but at the same time should facilitate. This is in spirit with this particular thinking that this has been provided.
So this justification has to be taken by the compliance team, or the management should be suggested to?
The compliance team will work hand in hand with the management, but what is more important is, before you proceed with any related party transaction, the compliance team should necessarily be consulted. It cannot
Correct.
be one where they do it and you're coming
And
mid-course.
then you're reporting.
Yeah, it's not like breaking a signal and then you say, okay, how do I set it right?
Perfect example, madam. Thank you. So, Anjanji, your view on that, assuming a situation when the year ending is there or the transaction has been happened.
I have a lot of views on that.
Yeah, please.
I have a lot of views. First
Don't
of all,
ask them to revert.
first,
Yes, it is audible.
first of all, am I audible? Hello. Thank you. First of all, we have to keep in mind that related party transactions are not always bad. I mean, when we are talking about ease of doing business and $30 trillion economy, India, a developed country, we have to understand that for ease of doing business, related party transactions are one prime factor for any company. I just give an example. Suppose I manufacture tire, I need raw materials, processing materials. I have comfort level with my related parties, where I know that there will not be any sabotage, there will not be any quality compromise, so my end product will not suffer. So related party transactions are not always bad. We must change our mindset, number one. Number two, what is required is transparency. Now, who are we trying to protect? We are trying to protect the investors. Now, if there is transparency, as an investor, I know that this company deals in related party transactions, still I am taking a decision to invest, then where is the role of regulators? Regulators' role comes when transparency is compromised, misleading informations are given. Now, keeping that in mind, this approval system, there are two types of approvals. One, for any transaction between two audit committee meetings, which ma'am discussed. Another is when the transaction goes beyond the omnibus approval. There are instances I have seen in many companies where omnibus approval limit is revised, but there is no specific provision in Companies Act or in LODR to revise the omnibus approval limit. Now, when we look at omnibus approval limit also, there can be identified transactions, unidentified transactions. What is the limit for unidentified transaction? 1 crore rupees. 1 crore rupees, a blanket limit for all type of companies. Now, when we are talking about Viksit Bharat, we are expecting different types of companies with very high volume, high transaction companies. So this limit of rupees 1 crore, that should also be linked to the total purchase or turnover or something where it is reasonable. Yes, for bigger companies, say I give an example, Reliance Industries Limited vis-a-vis Parle India Limited. Limit is 1 crore for both. Volumes are quite different. Number three is, if it is ratified after 3 months, that provision should always be there. There can be various reasons for a company not being able to take prior permission. Probably it was not possible to call a board meeting, and there was a very important transaction which had come in between. So that provision should always be there. It is a welcome move. Thank you.
Thank you.
With this discussion, some points came in my mind, not this time, but it is came in mind since so many times. We have LODR in 2015 after repercussion of listing agreement. And slowly this LODR becomes everything. On the same line, we have the provision under the Companies Act. And if you are making now our ministry is thinking about ease of doings and reducing the penalty things. But this LODR, every day new regulation have new penalty clauses. And day by day, this penalty clause is becoming increasing. So through this LODR we are really achieving our concept of ease of doing business, because same provisions we have under the Companies Act. Either we can do these things through our rules. So why this LODR separately given to the industry, and industry have some other burden on them? Because same provision we have, if you talk about 188, if you talk about 179, everything's over there. So why these two things? Are you think it is ease of doing business, or it should be merge both the things under one act? First from ma'am, then Avishkar sir. First ma'am, yes.
Actually, having these two as two separate legislations is right. because Companies Act is for the structure of the organization. If you follow a structure of a corporate entity as a company, you need to comply with all the provisions of Companies Act. Of course, some of these provisions may be overlapping, are overlapping with respect to related party in particular. Of course, with respect to related party under 188, there is a relaxation if it is in the ordinary course of business and on arm's length basis, but there's no similar relaxation under LODR 23.4. In fact, 23.4, there's an absolute limit of 1,000 crores or 10% of consolidated turnover, and 1,000 crores in several companies becomes a threshold. And as Anjan was also mentioning, it's a one-size-fits-all limit. So, but having said that, if you have gone to the market regulator certainly has a right to regulate, because a lay investor is the person whose approach is considered when they look at provisions of law. In fact, the market has developed. If compliance is moved to a higher level, then in that case, probably we will not be seeing penalties at all. But having said that, that's of course an ideal situation. Penalties with respect to the regular compliances should actually go off. There should be no entity which falls under that category, which in my personal view is a play between creating awareness and willingness to comply. Now, willingness to comply, I would say, is certainly there. It is just that awareness with respect to a large group of entities is still not really at that level. So which is the reason conferences like this will certainly ensure that the compliances are clearly communicated. Also, when the change happens at a fast pace, people then need to calibrate their processes, systems to ensure that they are completely geared to meet those changes. And that's something which is a dynamic process which will bring in. But to answer your question, I personally believe having to, and this is an international practice. If you have gone to the market, yes, you will have a slightly stringent set of laws which you will need to comply with.
And as for your remarks, we can say that's why the more investor nowadays is from mid segment, because the regulator has given a confidence to the stakeholder. Okay, this is the things, no company is going to do any wrong things. Viskar sir, what
but
you
I would
call?
also like to add, today what is also happening is because of the small investor, especially investors holding one share, asking for too much of information, which is not actually relevant, which is not something which, as an investor one should be asking, is also the other side of the pendulum which needs to be corrected. Going forward, in order to ensure that the interest of the shareholders is protected and is taken care of, you have scores, which is a good move. You also have ODR. But what today is happening is, one does not go under scores at all. One does not even write to the company. They directly go under ODR. And under ODR, you do have different agencies. They do forum shopping also. So these are things which will also need to be corrected as we go along. Yeah.
So as in the initial, again, when we were talking about that ease of doing business, and also in the initial meetings also, the same part was discussed, that what should be the scope for the initial meetings and all that one. So one part came is that whether we should just look at changing things, like say somewhere regulation would have said working days to calendar days and all that way. That type of changes, is it really ease of doing business, or there has to be something substantial where, say example, it actually helps the listed entities or the investors upfront and all that way. So the whole idea was at some point of time we should go in that particular area, that whether if that information is available in the public domain, it has been submitted to a regulator, like say example MCA or so, then that part should also get incorporated. So what we have tried to do is, at this juncture, if you see the 200 odd page document, I can say frankly that it is the lower rungs or the second layer of things which we have tried to touch. There are certain filings, as he also articulated, that which are available, say with ROC, whether we can get it incorporated and whether that can be treated as compliance is what now in the third phase we are trying to look at. But there are certain challenges in the sense when we say that we will rely on, say example, MCA or ROC data and all, whether we will be able to get it and display it for our investors, because say the investor comes on exchange website and all to get that sort of information. And second is the quality of the data, because say you all also will be aware of that, what the data which is coming, whether it is reliable and all that way. So once that reliability and consistency is there, then we will be going into the third part, which will actually help the listed entity and the investors.
Thank you, Avishkarji. Friends, we'll be having this last question from the podium size, and thereafter we may invite the questions from the participants. Since this is a burning topic, so we may have the huge amount of questions, but we'll be able to take 1 or 2 questions from the participants, please. Sir, I'll coming on the one important question regarding one of the circular by the SEBI, 21st May recently on 2024. I'm talking about the rumor verification. I think offline we discussed about the same, one of the similar incident. So this industry standard note has advised the listed entities to follow the rumor verification. Now, in regarding this, how to facilitate or to have a uniform approach or to set out an SOP on compliance with the rumor verification, as there are a lot of challenges into that. And sometimes it becomes a mockery also when some small incident happen and this has to be reported to the SEBI, though it may or may not be a rumor, but has to be reported. And sometimes it becomes a rumor and people are not aware, or the industry is not able to accept it. So there is no yardstick to that, there is no any measurement to that, yeah, this is a rumor and I need to report it. So just please you to throw light on this provision, what can be a best mode of operation for this, and what can be something additional to that.
So when we go in this particular topic, rumor verification, we should first look at what is the history and why it has come up and all that one. So rumor verification has been being done by the exchanges since say last 15, 20 years and all. They write to the company and the company typically 99.999% of the time used to deny it. That they used to have some sort of a standardized line and all that one. I'm not saying that company was right because right or wrong, because the companies also had their own reasoning and all for that particular response and all that one. When that matter came to PMAC, in the sense the Primary Market Advisory Committee, they decided that let's start with a graded approach. Let's start with the top 50 or 100 companies and see how we can implement it. In the sense, let them at least accept or deny this particular part. The moment the regulations came in, there were difficulties faced by the listed entity. And again, it was genuine because say the scope, the way it was worded, in the sense the media and all the words used, it expanded the scope, means there was no limit to what one has to monitor and all that way. So what it was decided is, since it's an implementation issue, it goes to Industry Standard Forum. Industry Standard Forum is all participants from CII, FICCI, SOCHM and all that one. They had multiple rounds of meeting. And the problem, now I'm just coming to the problem area. 3011 talks about material events. The moment you keep it vague, in the sense say that, okay, you have to look at material event industry-wise and all that way, again that vagueness will creep in. So what ultimately came out is, in here, Gujarati, there say that, I forget how, Bhav Bhagwan Che. In the sense, price is the ultimate. Let the markets will actually determine whether that information is, because we had to bring out certain things in the sense where there is certainty to the company that, okay, this threshold, I need to come and give a certain sort of clarifications and all that way. And that's why this particular part came that, okay, based on the price range, what is that particular price threshold which is, or the price movement which is breaching, you have to come and give a rumor verification. Now comes the challenging part. In the sense, even after this Industry Standard Forum came up with this suggestion, there are multiple challenges which companies face. I'm just giving 1 or 2 examples in this regard. Say, there are certain things which are in the regular course of business. Say, example, if I am a car manufacturer, bringing a new model of car every 6 months is a requirement. Otherwise, I will be stale in the market. The moment you take out the car on the road for a test drive and all, you put that white and black color wrapper on the car, and there are websites like Team BHP and all which keep on monitoring, and they immediately publish that there's a car on the road and all that. And by chance, if the price reacts, whether what is that particular company to do, whether whether SIF deny something which is in its regular course of business. Second challenge, in the sense, and that happened in the last 2 days itself. There was one news item where, say, a director in a subsidiary was traveling in an aircraft and there was certain incident revolving it. And when exchanges went and saw, there was no other news for this entity except for this news item, and the price has moved by 4 or 5%. Then what to do? And that's why what we also, as an exchange, what we try to do is that same philosophy. Bhav Bhagwan che, if there's a price movement, we go and do the rumor verification. There are certain items which, as an exchange or a regulator, we cannot give more clarification and all, even though we believe that it is correct. So what I also try to do is, Mr. Kothari is here. He has published on 1st June a 104-page, 104 points FAQ. It gives you very good clarity on what to do in a particular scenario and all that way. So for me, it's like I go to that particular document, and wherever its suggestion is asked informally, I refer to it and give a reply.
Praveen, kindly take the view of ma'am as well on this particular topic.
From industry perspective, madam, please.
So just to add on to what was said by Avishkar, this industry standard note has brought in clarity, and I would use it in my colloquial term as the gates. The first gate is, as he said, Bhav Bhagwan che. So only if there is a price movement exceeding the threshold, which there are 3 thresholds based on the bands, only if the price movement, as it is called material price movement, exceeds that, will the first door open. Only if the first door opens, the obligation on the company to confirm, deny or clarify will arise. If the door does not open, does not matter at all. Now, let's assume the door opens. Let's assume the price has moved beyond the threshold. And in the 60 sources which are now treated as mainstream media based on the industry standard note, I'm not looking at the foreign jurisdictions, domestic. If in the 60 sources there is nothing which is published, should the company write to the exchange saying there is no news in the mainstream media? My view on that is it's not required. And actually we saw it just the day before the budget, where the price moved considerably. There was nothing. There was no specific news about the companies. And a good number of companies, the prices went up. And the question was whether the companies were required to give a confirmation, denial or otherwise. My personal view is it's not required. Although this is not very specifically covered anywhere, I would say that only if it is published in mainstream media will the second door open. So the first one was with respect to material price movement. There are 3 terms which one needs to bear in mind with respect to Regulation 3011. First and the most important one is material price movement, or MPM. Second is something getting published in mainstream media. Of course, something getting published has to be specific, that is impending specific event which gets published in mainstream media. If yes, then you need to either confirm, deny or clarify. Of course, with respect to confirmation, there is an incidental provision with respect to ICDR and SAST getting kicked in, which has also been very clearly provided, as well as the provisions of ICDR as well as SAST have also been amended to be in sync with this particular requirement. So to sum up, I would say one needs to see whether there has been an MPM, and second is mainstream media. Originally, when 3011 was passed, the amendment to 3011 happened in LODR, the term used was mainstream media and the definition was too wide, which the industry standard note has now clarified and has brought in 60 sources, as I would refer to as 60 sources, which covers everything right from print, digital, TV, websites, everything. Yeah.
Thank you, madam.
So my question to Avishkar ji, again recently whatever changes happened, in that changes one concept came into, that is the curated links. Through that links we are going to update the things on their website. So about this curated links, can you please explain how this will lessen the burden of listed entities in terms of saving cost, time and...
It was covered.
So covered.
Okay, you had taken curatedly. Okay, yeah. Initially, first question. Okay. Next one is about this AI things. Without IT, nothing is going to happen. So how this SEBI is bringing out a number of policy decisions with the technology advancement to facilitate ease of doing business. Can you please give your take on the role of company secretary with the advancement of all these AI and digitization of compliances, digital boardroom? Avishkar, sir.
You see, from an exchange perspective, or the regulator is very clear that whatever data now which we receive has to be standardized, consistent, and comparable. These are the three main things. So just to give an example so that we can all relate to, if you look at earlier ESG reports or BRSR reports and all, each company used to follow its own format. Now what is happening, the moment you bring in something like an XBRL and you provide a particular format, the data comes in a standardized, consistent, and comparable form. What we as exchange or regulators also do is, we try to, once that data is received by us, we do all sorts of analytics on it, and then there are details report and all which come out. At this juncture, it is all in not in public domain. At some point of time, it will be shared in the public domain also that way, because the ultimate aim is that we provide the investor at the final clean data for that perspective. From a company's perspective, because that question was revolving around what the company, the issue here is many of the times when we in the committee also this point was discussed. When committees are formed, it is formed of the top companies, in the sense the members are top 50 companies. It will be industry forums. Again, if you talk about it will be CI and all that way. But the non-compliance or the main difficulty is the companies who are outside this particular room, who are not part of this particular meetings and all that way. So the decision or what has been decided in this case is that whatever standardization or whatever tools have to be developed, it will be developed by the exchanges and it will be provided. So XBRL, when we say that we have released a utility, if I have to just give a cost in the sense so that you all can relate, one utility when we develop, its minimum cost is around 50 lakhs. When we give it free of cost, because the whole intent is again that three words, standardization and comparability. We get that information and we give it to the investors free of cost so that he can take an informed decision. So at this juncture, the whole idea is that not put the burden on the listed entities, but get it absorbed by the exchanges and give it to investors.
Thank you. Friends, quick questions from the participant side. Yeah, please, sir. Someone can facilitate the mic. Sir.
Namaskar to all of you. My one question is pertaining to SEBI circular of January 2022. 2020. It deals with both the non-compliance penalty as well as deals with SOP, standard operating procedure. Suppose it is not followed by any stock exchange, standard procedure, whether they can impose the penalty, answer should be in the light of easy way of doing, and for small company, middle-sized company. I know many company, many stock exchange, they does not follow this standard operating procedure. But after certain time, they impose the penalty. Whether it is right or whether we can challenge it.
I didn't get it. In the sense you are saying stock exchanges are not following.
Yeah. Suppose I am a company. I am not I'm a small company of Calcutta. I am not giving any particular information timely, whatever the reason. Now you are required to give us to promoters, to the shareholders as per SOP. You just keep mum. After 1 year, you send me the list of penalty. I am not complied it. But at the same time, principle of natural justice is required, and that SOP deals with that principle of natural justice only. Right. They are required to inform us so we can make the necessary correction also, which is not done. So whether in that event, whether I am bound to give the penalty, I can challenge this thing.
So this, say, this SOP also, what they have done is we have something called as the carve-out policy.
Yeah.
Say, if the moment we levy some sort of a penalty and there's a genuine reason at the company's end and all that way, they can come to the exchange, they have a committee which will go into that particular matter and then take that decision whether that waiver has to be done or not. And clearly there are instances where, say, if there is, again, the word you said, genuine difficulty in compliance, then there is a waiver which is available for that listed entity that way. But say, just to say that because I am a small company, there should be no penalty or there should be no,
question of
there is
penalty. I am asking whether you yourself, stock exchange, you are also required to follow this.
Yes, we have to follow because
is applicable to both cases. For
Yes.
me as a company, for professional as well as on the stock exchange also.
Right. So
you have not yourself followed this SOP.
Sir,
That is my question. Okay.
Sir, actually, point what you are raising, it is subjective matter and it's vary to company as well. What company is doing particular compliances or not? You are saying it's okay. Sometimes it's happened, mostly not NSE side, from BSE side, this thing is happening on regular basis. But it's okay, we can raise it on separate platform. Aviskar sir is not mean for that.
Yeah, please. No issue. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah,
I got
last
your
question.
answer, yeah.
One more
You have
question
got
was-
one committee there. You told me. Yeah.
Sir, last question.
So, my name is Sandeep Lakutia. So, I have two suggestions for the regulators. One is that nowadays a lot of circulars, notifications, and clarifications come in. So, if we can have a defined interval at which these can come, for example, a quarterly or a half-yearly, that would be appreciated by everyone, including the practicing company secretaries. Second, your master circulars are nowadays updated on a yearly basis. That can be updated on a quarterly basis or a half-yearly basis. That will also help in increasing the compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think suggestions are really welcomeable.
Hello.
Action may be noted.
Yeah, I have a query. Rather, I want to seek advice and guidance from Savitri ma'am. See, as a company secretary, there are three stakeholders, primary stakeholders when it comes to compliance with the Regulation 30 or SEBI LODR. One is, of course, the secretarial team, that is the company secretary, the CFO, and the management. Let's see the managing director, who happens to be also the promoter. Now, what I have, or as company secretary, we issue SOPs, try to sensitize the entire company about the regulations, changes and all. But more often than not, what happens, for example, one very common example is, agitation or shutdown of factory. You as a company secretary is not even informed. You come to know after 2-3 days, so from the CHRO or from the grapevine. So how, as a company secretary, we should conduct or the practical approach of dealing with or the interface of this management, CHRO, CFO, and how do we safeguard ourselves or, from the regulatory, because the regulatory MC and all, when they issue notices, they will issue to the company secretary also. And at that point of time, the board of directors, the intent always is to hold the company secretary responsible. Why didn't you disclose this information to the stock exchange on time? So how do you deal with the entire thing, ma'am? Thank you.
Sure. What you've raised is a very practical question. Question is not of complying only when I come to know. Question is to be able to understand what are the compliances under a particular statute that the company is required to comply with and putting processes in place. I would say there are two things which are very important. One is creating awareness. Second is ensuring compliance. Now, ensuring compliance may not always happen through the company secretary. Creating awareness, there are several statutes where compliances are required to be ensured, and that awareness needs to be created across the organization. Earlier, and I would take the example of Companies Act 1956, most of the provisions were required to be complied with only after the person came to know of it, or rather, the provisions were also such which required board to approve. Only after that, the compliance was required to be done. That particular way of compliance has now changed considerably. The frame is completely different now. When you look at compliance, it's compliance outward. That is, you need to look at the compliances which the entity is required to do, not only under Companies Act and under LODR, but also with respect to everything else which are relating to the operations of the company. We may not be the experts to know all about it. For example, what is the PPM which can be discharged under an Environment Protection Act or under the Water Prevention and Prevention of Pollution Act is not something which we are going to know. But raising those questions, having the subject matter experts clearly coming up with those points, ensuring that compliance is given that importance is what is important first. Similarly, under LODR also, moving on to a specific point, under 23, they have very clearly brought in this concept of materiality, and when Materiality 34 was amended, there was also further amendment under Regulation 30 saying that the materiality policy should be communicated, and all persons who would be aware of it need to communicate to the company secretary. Now here I would like to distinguish between an incident that is happening and communication. Everything, let's say for example, if it's an acquisition, very often the company secretary may not be a part of the core group and may not know about it. There's nothing wrong in not knowing about it. But what is the compliance required to be done by the company? Having one of the persons who's there in that discussion as a person who will comply with it is important. And I think that move and that shift has clearly come to stay. And compliance is no longer one where one can say, fine, I will comply only when I come to know of it. The requirement of the organization to comply has to be distinguished from the requirement of this person to comply, and that needs to be brought out very clearly. Talking of keeping the promoters informed about it, it's very essential that the board is sensitized and is made aware of its responsibilities, because when there is a non-compliance, it is the independent director who's going to be questioned first. And therefore, it is the independent directors, there was a feeling that it was we versus they, which is no longer the feeling. Good companies get much, much more mileage from independent directors. I'm not saying that the company secretary should go to the independent directors and get things done, but basically have the sensitization of the entire board, saying that these are the 20 compliances which are essential under LODR, and these are the processes that are in place. And ensure that the processes are put in place, because a person-based compliance is going to be difficult. Let me just give an example. Under 3011 rumor verification, while I was on the flight, my phone was off. When I got down, I had, we have a tool which monitors it, which is what is required for all companies which have 3011, which has already become applicable. I had some 40 messages which I had to see. On my way to the hotel, I quickly saw those messages. Now, if at least getting it curated and getting the relevant information has become imperative today. That's the need of the hour, and we need to move with it.
Thank you. Specifically in that respect, I have a request to all the participants whosoever be here. Kindly go through the expert committee recommendation, specifically Regulation 30 and Regulation 29. It is really going to be helpful, because that two particular observation in that committee recommendation is in detail. So please go through that, and specifically as ma'am told you about this Regulation 30 subclause 4, and that is very crucial one for a company secretary who are working under a listed company in an organization. Over to Praveen.
Thank you. I think we need to conclude the workshop now, because getting sites for the next session and speakers are there. So we need to make this over. I'll come.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your ideas and thoughts with us. This discussion on SEBI LODR latest amendments and clarifications.
Hello. Thank you, all the participants once again. Thank you, first of all, President ICSI and Sandeep Bhai, Program Director, for giving this opportunity. This corporate CS conference was idealized in 2019 when Ranjit Pandey was the president, and based on the recommendations the council approved, while I was the only council member in two corporate that time. And it comes with the good features now, and we are at the fifth version of it. And Savitri Madam was the speaker on that program also, I think, first round. And fortunately, the venue was Hotel Lalit, but it was at Mumbai. So we had a good workshop specifically dedicated for the corporate company secretaries. Friends, today we had a very high-profile speakers during this session, and the panelists are really where we have got a lot of learning from their experiences, a lot of experience they have shared. I think when we are concluding this workshop on the SEBI LODR, it's a vital framework that has transformed the landscape of corporate governance and the transparency into India. When I'm talking about the compliance part, yes, I think it is rigorous disclosures and the requirement of stringent compliance norms that has raised the bar for the listed companies and ensuring that investors have access for timely and accurate information. As moving forward, I think it is essential that we continue to refine the strengthen these processes, regulations, and adaptations, and let us make or reaffirm our commitment to the transparency, accountability, and the good governance. My sincere thanks to all the three panelists, starting from Anjan Kumar Roy ji, sharing your practicing company secretary's view on the topic, and the ease of doing steps which we are assuming or that government can imply or the regulators can imply. Thank you, Savitri Madam, for coming so far, and in spite of the challenges from the technical side, and making this program a wonderful sharing of your thought process again from the industry perspective, as I love to that side of the profession. But yes, it's a wonderful and amazing note. Thank you, Avishkar ji, sharing your thoughts from the regulator's point of view. Though you are the only one, if you move out, you will be scared by the people because there are lots of requests are there from the people, those who are there from the industry representatives. And yes, queries will always be there, questions will always be there, suggestions will always be there. Thank you so much to all the participants for hearing us patiently. And we are concluding this session formally, and we'll set back for the next section. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I request, one second, ma'am. Now I request Suresh Pandey, sir, to present a memento to Savitri Parekh, ma'am.
Now I would request CS NPS Chawla sir to please present a memento to CS Avis Nayak sir.
Now I request CS Dr. Nagajayanti ma'am to present a memento to Anjan Kumar Roy, sir. Thank you. Members, please be seated. We are about to start our last technical session.
Susan, the company secretary. She's the unsung hero behind the scenes, keeping everything running smoothly. But when it comes to board meetings, well, they're her kryptonite.
But wait, here comes Board Pack, Susan's secret weapon for boardroom bliss. It's like having a personal assistant, minus the coffee runs.
Susan effortlessly creates meetings in under a minute. No more wrestling with spreadsheets or endless email chains. And those automatic reminders, they keep everyone on track. No more missed meetings.
Say goodbye to travel hassles. Board Pack seamlessly integrates with video conferencing platforms. Board members join from anywhere, and guess what? They have instant access to all those crucial board documents during the call.
Stuck on jargon? Tap QE, your AI chatbot in Board Pack. It finds answers instantly. Board Pack's AI generator captures decisions, drafts summaries, work made easy.
Need to send documents for review? Susan uploads and sends reminders with ease.
Member,
and the
please
best
settle
part?
down.
Version control. Compare different
Request all the
versions,
delegates to
hassle-free.
kindly remain seated. We are about to begin our fourth and last technical session on the
Board
topic.
members provide approvals directly within and the environment? Thank you, trees.
Worried about
Hello.
safety?
All the delegates are requested to be seated. The next technical session is about to start. I request all the delegates to be seated here only.
Let's begin our fourth and last technical session on the topic, digitizing governance, building efficacy. I now request CS Vinod Kothari, Company Secretary in Practice, past Chairman ICSI EIRC, Shri Manoj Tulsian, Joint Managing Director and CEO, Greenply Industries Limited, CS Mrityunjay Acharji, General Manager Finance, Numaligarh Refinery Limited, and our session moderators, CS Ashish Karodia, CS Rupanjana De, Council Member ICSI, to please be on the dais.
Can we have a big round of applause?
Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a big round of applause?
Now I request CS Ashish Kanodia to present a planter to Vinod Kothari, sir. Now I request CS Rupanjana De ma'am to present a planter to CS Sri Manoj Tulsian, sir. Now I request CS Rupanjana De ma'am to present a planter to CS Mrityunjay Acharya, sir. I now request CS Ashish Kanodia sir to give the introductory remarks and kindly take the session ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now we have entered the concluding session of this 5th National National Conference of Corporate CS. Friends, I have very emotional attachment with this conference. 2019 पहली कॉन्फ्रेंस 2019 मुंबई में हुई थी और एट दैट टाइम आई वाज चेयरमैन ऑफ ICSI WRC and it was one of the best program of that year, and again we are here with another successful conference. You may appreciate the efforts of Sandeep Kejriwal ji, program director of this conference, President sir, Vice President sir, and Rupanjana ji, with a big round of applause for making wonderful arrangements. Please. Friends, we all are witnessing a lot of changes in every sector of economy, including all laws in which we deal on daily basis. Another major change is that our work environment had a drastic shift from physical to digital. I believe digital transformation is more about the journey, not the destination. Because while digitalization, as soon as you reach one goal, many more will emerge on the possibility. India is setting its foot in the AI industry. The future of digital transformation in India is bright. With government initiative like Digital India and Startup India, speed up the process. Friends, to discuss this topic, we are having with three eminent speakers with us who carry different profiles. We have with us Mr. Manoj Tulsian, Joint Managing Director and CEO of Green Ply Industries Limited. He is professionally qualified as a company secretary, chartered accountant, and cost and works accountant. We have with us CS Mrityunjay Acharji, GM Finance of Numali Grah Refinery Limited. He is also a fellow member of the Institute of Cost Accountant of India and All India rank holder of the final examination of ICMAI. We have with us CS Vinod Kothari sir, practicing company secretary and past chairman of EIRC. सर, आपको सुनने का मुझे काफ़ी मौका मिला है और मेरे और ऑफिस के जो भी स्टाफ से वो आपके आर्टिकल राइट अप को हमेशा फॉलो करते हैं। और एक बात मैं आपकी एक लाइन में बात बोलूँगा कि ज्ञान और विनोद कोठारी दोनों एक दूसरे के परिवारवासी हैं। सो आई एम ग्लेड टू एक्सटेंड माई वार्म वेलकम टू ऑल ऑफ देम. Friends, I am sure this session, these faculties will prove the formula IT plus IT is equal to IT. Means we will learn how the combination of information technology with India's talent will lead to India's tomorrow. Once again, welcome you all. Now I request my co-moderator, CS Rupanjana, to proceed further.
Yeah, I hope I'm audible. Yes, I think I am. So very good afternoon to everyone, and thank you, Ashish, for handing over the mic to me now. We have come to the last session of this particular conference, national conference, and this is going to be the most powerful one, believe me. So I would like to begin with a quote, a very relevant one. We all have heard about Mr. Elon Musk, which is the CEO of Tesla Motors, and we all know he's a tech guru and an innovator. Now, when talking about AI, we expect him to say something very good about AI. But in contrary, in a very recent gathering at the MIT University, he gave a warning sign regarding AI, and I would like to quote that. And I quote, I'm increasingly inclined to think that there should be some regulatory oversight, maybe at the national and international level, just to make sure that we don't do something foolish. I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. So this is what Mr. Elon Musk had to say about AI. But of course, that warning aside, we all know that artificial intelligence is capable of processing a lot of data at the same time and identifying patterns, which helps the compliance teams to manage risks and do regulatory compliances and increase the overall efficiency of the board. So with that initial remark, I would like to pass on the baton to our eminent speakers today, who are experts and luminaries in their own fields. We have a lot to learn from their experience. So what we have done is that instead of having a 5-minute insight from every speaker, we have incorporated the entire observation in such a manner that there is a 360-degree approach through the questions that we ask. So I would like to first take up a question to Mr. Tulsian. So Mr. Tulsian, digital transformation is in a large way, it is impacting the way the board of directors interact with their management teams. So now you being the head of your organization, the head of board of directors in your organization, I would like to know from you, what are the areas, what are the opportunities you think that AI can increase board efficiency?
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. It's great to be amongst the fraternity. So though as you mentioned that I am a qualified company secretary, but after taking business roles, have moved away from many of those provisions which we used to swear by at some point of time. So I've also moved from a finance background to operations background. Coming back to your question, see, the first thing, the board effectiveness through AI, right, and the digitalization, right? This is what you're trying to understand. See, I think the country has moved on quite a bit, and the pace has grown significantly post the pandemic. Many of the things which I would say the organizations in the mid-level and the small level were not willing to adopt has been forcibly adopted post-pandemic. So today, if you really see, and I have the privilege of Mr. Kothari being here, who is also our board member. We have moved totally to digital platform in terms of conducting all our meetings. I don't even remember, while you were saying, I was just trying to recall that in the last 4 years, I don't even remember one meeting which has happened where physically all the board members are present. Okay, so I think we have crossed geographical boundaries, right? At the last meeting, I just recalled one of our board member was in US at that point of time. And he was attending the meeting, though it was like midnight for him, but somehow we were not able to align with the timeline, so he cooperated and he attended the meeting almost midnight sitting in US. So first and the foremost, I think it is helping a lot in terms of transparency. Earlier times what used to happen, and I can share this from my experience also, agendas itself will not reach all the board members on time. So the Institute and the Companies Act prescribes a lot of those timelines, but we always used to struggle in terms of even sending the agenda, to all the board members, because all has to be physically printed and then couriered. Sometimes it will not reach. It has reached to a place where, maybe the board member is not there. So the company secretary has made a mistake of sending it to the regular address, but at that point of time, the board member is not present, at that place. He's traveling. So while he comes to the meeting, he comes with a face where he says, I have not even received my folder. So I'm not prepared for the meeting. So gone are those days. If you really see the convenience which has happened, and all these things, even like, traditional organization like Greenply 5 years back, will not even believe of happening, conducting meeting through these platforms. But today, happily, even the promoters has believed that, yes, this is such a functional thing which is happening today. It doesn't waste anybody's time. You don't need to travel, be at your place. Coming to the management team, it becomes very easy for us to bring in anyone on the platform if we are talking on a particular subject where we feel that, we need our management team to be there at that point of time to educate the board or to discuss in larger, in detail about any topics which is coming to them. So if you really see, I would say that this is a big transformation, which is digitalization is bringing. Of course, it has a lot of pitfalls, okay, which we can discuss and we can go on discussing that. But I think on the positive side, also in terms of AI, look, ultimately what is AI? AI is using your database, right, filtering it in a way and helping you to look at a filtered data, I would say. That's what is really AI, right? So these things today has become very easy, very handy. Information is not a problem. We only need to use the information in the right perspective. So I think, and India, is really moving very fast in this. We have our own demographic advantage today. And for the next 30 years, I think our working population will be the highest. And that will be the biggest. So I keep saying that for us, our population is the biggest benefit today for this country in terms of our growth for the next 20, 30 years. And then there are data, which I can talk about, there are data which clearly speaks about that. So there are so many advantages which we as a country are doing. And we are very fast in adopting many of these things. So I think I only see a lot of benefits which has come out of all these things.
Thank you, Mr. Tulsian, for the very beautiful insight. The similar question, a little more specific, I would like to put to Mr. Acharya. In compliance management of an organization, what do you think, which are the areas where technologies like AI or, like a digital transformation, machine learning, blockchain, these can enhance, these can be deployed for enhancing the effectiveness of the organization in compliance management?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. And warm welcome to everyone. See, for me, let me say, I transformed from finance background to ultimately now in the business decision-making and policy-making process. And this question particularly is extremely relevant to me as well as for the industry I am representing. It's basically the oil and gas. AI is nowadays something which we cannot live around and which we cannot ignore also. Everywhere and every point it comes out as a basic information impedance to the board or to the decision-making process. So what precisely board is doing and what process is based on the data and the document and the entire elaboration that's being presented. So there are a host number of affected areas which I can go on speaking, but let me just give you one or two information in a practical background so that you can understand that what in real life AI is actually helping the board in taking the decision-making process and how it is actually impacting. See, in a gas industry or is in an oil industry, across the world, what is actually happening? Today, this moment, in some part of Russia, what is actually happening over there? What's the quality of gas that has been, identified? Some new reserve has been identified, or something in Colombia, something has been identified. What is the quantum reserves over there, and what would be the impact of it in the Singapore exchange or is in Dubai exchange? What will be the future price for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months? And how and what process my procurement policy will be changed accordingly. The board has to take a decision today that should I go for a spot or should I go for a forward? And this data, what Tulsian Sahab has just said, that data is available. It is important how to catch hold of, put it in the right place, and then get the best utilization of it. Friends, in our segment, we engaged, we actually deployed some of the agencies internationally, accredited. I'm not speaking out the name of that, but the result is phenomenal. You can take a decision. See, if today is the fortnightly, I am going for putting up a board note before the board to take a decision on procurement, which goes around, say, 5 million or 10 million USD. The price at what going to be, whether it will be a forward for 3 months or 7 months or 9 months or something that like, or should I go for a rollover? Every data today, my purchase decks or the oil decks is not providing themselves. They are taking the help of AI, and AI is giving this information by simulating the data available across the world in different commodity exchanges, particularly oil and gas exchanges. It also gives us suggestion, auto-popple suggestion that why you are going for a Colombia, why not you are looking for a US, or why not you are looking for Dubai or Singapore exchange. This is the the indication in Singapore exchange that has come 2 minutes back, please consider it. So yes, madam, yes, everybody, it's sometimes really makes us something jumbled, because I have just signed a board note going to the board, which is going to take place in a couple of hours, because what Tulsian Sahab has said that, I also appreciate the same thing, that board note never reaches well and well before, because that days has gone. The board need to get right now the information what is available in the market, because you are taking a decision of some million USD, some decision. So that case, even I sign something, goes to board, and it happened to me last 2 years, particularly after Ukraine war, that we had to rush to board and say, sir, please do not take a decision. This is the updated position, right? So who provides AI? I should say, without any confusion, the system is so robust, so developed, and at least in 2 years after the Ukraine war, I've seen that it is almost a trust. We are able to trust on this data simulation. So that's all about. One more point I mean, out of the host of the issues, one or two more. AI is a tool, possibly machine language and blockchains, right? Something which is going to take the entire business modeling and decision making into a new heights. Okay, the audit trail. One more, and then I'll close this particular issue. Audit trail become mandatory for the auditor to report. All of you are aware it is a mandate. What is audit trail? That in the entire financial year, any of the transaction in your SAP or any other ERP system, if you have changed it, right, then what is the change, who made the change, who authenticated, why change, what was the original, what is the revised, and what is the impact? Can you imagine an organization where, my two co-panelists are the helm of the affairs, or any of the organization for that matter? Is it possible to keep a manual track in whichever ERP? Simply answer is no. It's not possible. You cannot do. So many, every quarter people makes an entry, reverse it on the next day. This is a normal practice in accounts in the financial world, even in industry. Is it possible? But the law become mandatory by way of a circular that audit trail is mandatory. An auditor, statutory auditor, need to give a report on that. Okay? Otherwise, the accounts will be qualified and all the consequences will come out. Ask this gentleman, information gentlemen, right? Who are they? AI, right? BC, blockchain, and the instruments thereof. Yes, ma'am and sir, it is actually happening, right? They come out, not even, maybe not 100% proven. We have to wait for another 1 year to see the total trustworthiness. But yes, it has come out to give us internally that these are the journal entries being passed in the entire year, and these are the original, and this is what is the revised. So now you take a decision whether you are going to disclose it or not to disclose. That is up to the board to take a call. Right? So this is what the advantages, challenges, and these are the affected areas. What ma'am has said is true issues that need to be addressed at this particular forum. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now my question is for Vinod, sir. Sir, AI is being used everywhere, and there was some interesting news about the appointment of AI on the boards of some leading international companies. What is the legal position on this?
Thanks. Thanks very much for the question. Let's first get little interactive and try to build some communication with you all also. So let me just ask you a question, and I'll expect you to maybe give your confirmation by raising your hand. Mr. Mrityunjay talked about artificial intelligence assisting the board in decision making. He was talking about the power of information, the power of the rapid collection of information across the world, and that assisting the board of directors in the decision making. Manojji was talking about use of technology for conduct of board meetings. He referred to board meetings where different directors were in different parts of the globe, and the meeting took place seamlessly with no one having to travel. This is something which has become completely usual for everyone. In terms of the power of artificial intelligence to assist the board in assisting the board in decision making, how many of you are agreeing that there is a tremendous potential there? I can only see some hands going up. Would that mean others are not still convinced or they did not get my question? Okay. I'm putting the next question now. Can artificial intelligence be appointed as a director on the board of a company? Yes, there's one hand going up. Two. Not in India. Not in India. कि मनोज जी की कंपनी में डायरेक्टर्स रिटायर होने वाले हैं तो not in India. Right. So let's now discuss what's the legal and the factual position on appointment of AI as directors on boards of companies. The first of, so in terms of AI assisting the board in decision making, culling data, accumulating data, analyzing data, sifting data, doing data analysis, doing projections, doing comparison, that's something which is no-brainer. I think no one needs to argue on that because human potential versus the potential of a machine. The ability of the machine to churn and process data is infinitesimally higher than that of any human being. So that's completely a given case. There's no need to argue on that. Unarguable completely. As regards the appointment of AI itself as a director on the board of a company, I think the first of the news items that we could probably gather is a 2014 news item of a Hong Kong-based company called Deep Knowledge Ventures. Deep Knowledge Ventures appointed AI as a formal board member. This happened in 2014. From 2014 till 2024, we've been tracking this for several years now. And we noted some sporadic instances, some Scandinavian company doing it, some Nordic company doing it. So stray instances from here and there across the world with companies trying to appoint AI as a board member. But I think the headline that really was very notable was one of the largest company, in fact, the largest company out of UAE, a company called International Holding Company, which is the royal family's international investing organization based out of Abu Dhabi. The company's asset size is 6 lakh crores. And this company has 6 board members already. The 7th board member it appointed in the month of March this year, March 2024. Integration happened in the month of May 2024. Was an AI tool called Aiden Insight. Aiden Insight is the name of the tool. So Aiden Insight, you call it Mr. or Miss, I wouldn't know. It speaks like a female, so I'll call it Miss Aiden Insight, was appointed as the 7th director on the board of the company. And on this Miss Aiden, of course, is a director without voting powers. I'm sure you cannot expect the Aiden to be coming and casting votes. So that's why it's called a board observer. Now, board members versus board observers, something that we're all comfortable with. Many cases in India as well, we have board members. We have some private equity investors who appoint board observers. So board observer is somebody who would be in the board meeting. He'll get papers of the board meeting, will probably be privy to the board discussions, will not participate by voting at board meetings. Nevertheless, he'll be involved in all decisions. Now, similarly, this Aiden Insight gets all the board minutes, gets to consume all the previous board minutes, gets access to the company's MIS, gets access to the MIS of other companies, whichever is publicly available. And therefore, whenever a board proposal comes, this Aiden Insight does processing of all the data and contributes to the board its own views about matters. The voting, ultimate decision making is that on the board of directors, of course, but Aiden Insight's analysis of matters before the board takes a decision is greatly helpful because it's coming with a tremendous power of information processing. Now, if we thought that for a board member, what is needed is intuition, because board members, after all, conduct board proceedings based on intuition. Manoj ji has a great experience. Now, similarly, other directors on the board of the company have experience, they have background, they have understanding. So they have intelligence. They don't have artificial intelligence, they have intelligence which is backed by A, past experience, and B, the intuition to look at a future based on the background of the past. After all, what is intuition? Analyze this question. What is intuition after all? We are trying to do what? We are trying to project the future based on the background of the past. Intuition is not a light which is shining from the sky. None of us have that, insights which is dawning from the sky. An entire intuition of any human being is based on past information trying to project at the future. This is precisely what the computer can also do. The computer can actually store and process far more information and without any prejudice, because the moment there is a man or a person doing analysis, there are always prejudices. For example, I might have my own prejudice, I might have my own bias. I might have my conflict of interest. There's no question of a conflict of interest. There's no question of a prejudice. There's no question of inability to process data. And therefore, the AI comes up with conclusions or kind of points to be noted by board of directors after sifting through this entire pile of information. So that's the tremendous contribution that AI can make. To my mind, today we are thinking of this as a kind of surprising information. AI being appointed as a board member is probably seeming like surprising to us. As Rupanjana rightly mentions, we cannot be formally filing a DIN number and appointing a director with rotational powers or whatever on boards of the company. It wouldn't be somebody who is having the qualification of acting as an independent director. So it would probably be a symbolic director. It wouldn't be a director as a person. It would still be a director as a symbolic director. But trust me, in the next meeting of National Company Secretary, this would hardly be a news item. This would become such a routine matter because once this aid and insight matter has become successful and the AI tool is able to make contribution to the large investment arm of the royal family of Abu Dhabi, I'm sure other companies internationally, and one wouldn't be surprised, larger companies in India also start implementing that. So like Rupanjana started with a quote from Elon Musk expressing some apprehension about the power of AI, I must supplement with a quote from another person, an Indian professor in the Harvard, Professor Karim Lakhani, who also quite often talks about the power of AI in business transformation. And Karim Lakhani says, there never would be a case where AI would replace humans. There wouldn't ever be a case where AI would replace humans, but humans with AI will surely replace humans without it. Next.
Thank you very much for bringing this very interesting perspective to the discussion on AI. It's really interesting to know that AI is now serving as a symbolic director. I had heard about orangutan being appointed as a board member in a company in Malaysia, but today, I stand, with more information about that. It's really interesting. But as you mentioned, this was in 2014. Yeah, no, the appointment was in 2014. So we have already had 10 years. I mean, this the first AI director being appointed in 2014, you mentioned. So it's been 10 years since then, which is a long time. It's a decade. And India generally is not very slow to catch on to these kind of developments worldwide. So why has it not, we have not caught up with it? And are there any downsides to having an AI director on the board?
No, I'm sure there are downsides. So let's first, I think we couldn't be talking better in the context of downsides of technology than with the outage yesterday. The outage yesterday, which disrupted all flights across the world, disrupted banking operations across the world, businesses were hit, lots of people in lots of ways of life were hit. So the power of technology to disrupt all of us, and that too together, because we can't avoid big tech. Big tech is something which is unavoidable because the kind of massive use of technology which is required for international coordination, coordinated operations across the world, it's impossible to happen with the diversified provider base. And therefore, the big tech companies are here to stay. And if the big tech companies are there to stay, then the dependence on big tech will also there. And wherever we have a dependence, we have this kind of vulnerability also. So vulnerability to technology is obviously a risk which the entire world is aware of. But among the downsides, so first of all, let me just supplement Rupanjana's question. 2014 was the first case that we talked about, the Hong Kong-based company. But the one that I was just talking about was 2024, as recent as May 2024. And between 2014 to 2024, what I was mentioning was that there haven't been many cases. There are sporadic cases, not many. And Rupanjana is also right in saying that India is quite fast in catching up to these things. So if at all there's something which has a potential, it's not a very costly device either. I'm sure the cost of hiring AI as a board member, Manojji, would be cheaper than the cost of paying independent directors. No commission, no sitting fees. You hire them once and you're done for life.
Also, no nuisance at times from the independent directors. But at the same time, see, just to add to what Kothari is saying, very interesting. First, I think what happened in Hong Kong was possibly before time. Timing is very important in whatever we do. And at that point of time, the knowledge on actually developing AI and working on AI was also missing.
Very well.
So anything which is done before time has to fail. And I think, if I'm not wrong, that company also failed. Okay.
Probably, yes.
So you know, it is very important for us to understand about timings on many of these things when it comes to any tech platform. And then the knowledge base to handhold the same.
Absolutely.
And yes, I can tell you on behalf of this country that in the next 10 years, India will be the fastest in adopting this.
Correct.
You know, that is the speed of change what we really work in this country with.
Absolutely. I'm completely in agreement with Manoj. So I think in terms of downsides, one downside which is quite apparent is overdependence. The moment you have technology tools assisting you, humans start trusting the machine as if the machine is infallible. Now that's the biggest mistake to make, because all machines are fallible. As humans are subject to prejudices, humans are subject to errors of judgment. Similarly, machines are also subject to errors, because after all, the learning or the programming of the machine, the algo that goes into the machine is also made by some man. So somebody must have made the algo might have its own prejudice, the algo might have its own biases, and those biases may continue to affect decisions, and the impact of the algo could be so subtle that it goes without observation. And as over a period of time we build up a dependence on the machine, we start trusting the machine as if the machine is gospel. So that's the biggest problem. In fact, in a recent survey by Yale University, there was a Yale seminar in the honor of Steven Spielberg. And Steven Spielberg, once again, is a very well-known name, related with science fiction. And in that seminar also, 42% of CEOs of American companies expressed the apprehension that there might be big debacle in dependence in boards of US companies on AI. So the risks are there, of course, but I would once again recall that when computers were introduced, thinking of let's say 1980s, computers and automation came to banks, there were widespread protests. Across Calcutta, we could see processions, computer cholbe na, amader job chole jabe, amader chakri chole jabe. There were apprehension then as well. And now it's become so much a part of life that this is something, I mean, this advance of technology, insertion of AI as not just a technological tool, but a content provider is become so indispensable that in time to come, it's bound to become the in thing. Of course, mitigants will have to be built. Disaster prevention mechanism will have to be there. So those safeguards will have to be built in, but it is something which is bound to come.
Manoj sir, sir, balancing digitization of management with information security is crucial. We have to ensure the efficient operation of digital systems, and alongside need to safeguard sensitive data and protect this data against cyber threats. So how do we balance both?
I don't think, you know, anyone has an answer. If there was an answer, then that one company, what Kothariji mentioned yesterday, would not have actually. So, you know, if you really look at what happened yesterday, I was just assuming it is like a cyber war. One company today in the world has now the capability to declare a cyber war across the globe. I mean, you know, it affected everything. It affected everything. Our factory, one of our line got closed because something was at the printing stage. It was again, you know, attached to some server which was again linked to Microsoft. Today morning I was talking to my team and we were having a review, and they were saying, sir, you know, in the hotel, the access card was not working. So every damn thing, you know, and we all heard about what Kotai said about, you know, aviation disturbance yesterday and so on and so forth. So I think what we need to look at is, yes, it's first of all, on the positive side of it, it's a great enabler. Whether it is AI, whether it is using any digital tool, is a great enabler. It changes the speed of decision making if it is being used in the right perspective. Okay, and that's one of the reasons, if you will see that, you know, India is growing faster than many of the other countries in the world. Because the strength of our country is adoption. Once we come to know that there is something which will help us in our business, something, we are one who just, you know, goes and laps it up. So you can only prevent a few things. You can do a few things to prevent. Maybe regular risk assessment is something which you'll have to conduct. Now you need the right set of people even to conduct the risk assessment, right? At the same point of time, the biggest fear what we have, like, I personally believe a lot on digitalization and we have done a lot. But again, access control is something which is very important about what data should be shared with whom in the organization or at any level. It is very, very important. And what happens is, if you really see, Indians are passionate. At the same point of time, we also carry an ego. If you deny a data to anyone in the system, he will feel, sir, why am I not getting this data? He may not need that data. But that mere no to him is like, it's an insult. So these are behavioral metrics where the country has to work a lot. So these are maturity metrics which will happen over a period of time. Second, even when the data gets transferred from one place to another place, data encryption again becomes very, very important. How do you make the data travel? Because today, this set of gentry which is here are all very knowledgeable, and we all know that, governance is so important. There is regulatory framework which comes and hits all of us in terms of governance. Now in governance, not everybody will know that if this data has to go to this 10 people, right, you are using some method of conduit to send the data. Now, who in between is a hacker who will read that data and misuse the data? So you have to do a lot of work on encryption of the data also. Today we all use social media, we all use WhatsApp, but everyone is confused about what is encrypted, what is not encrypted. With Meta coming in, everyone feels that now nothing is in your phone is secured anymore. Right? So this knowledge is very, very important. We'll have to continue to work on doing risk assessments. Even third-party softwares, we use a lot of integrated platforms, right? Now, how do you know that the third-party data is encrypted? So like yesterday, going back to the same example that, if one of my printing machinery gets stopped, which I never felt earlier, that it will get affected because of, some outage which is happening at Microsoft worldwide. But, how do we go to that level today, and what is the level of investments which we need to do further on this? There's a lot of resistance from our side only when it comes to investment beyond a point, because we feel whether it is worth or not. But today our dependence is so high on the IT platform that one thing which is extremely important for any organization to understand is a sizable chunk of the money has to go for IT investments every year. And it is a necessity. It is not a choice, because unknowingly everything today what we do, there is a tech involvement. So this investment has to go continuously. That risk assessment has to happen. You have to get the right people. Training of your own force is also again very, very important in how to use that data, where to use that data. So there are a lot of things on which we all need to work. It's a continuous process. It's a journey. As I think you mentioned in the beginning itself, it's a journey, but we have to keep our eyes and ears open. We have to use the tech platform. We have to use AI. We have to use digitalization, but at the same point of time, cautiously.
Thank you, Mr. Tulsian. Now, talking about data protection only, I would also like to have a discussion on it from the compliance perspective. My question is to Mr. Acharya. In this age of, we are talking about data, personal data and privacy and security of our data, because we don't want to land in the hands of fraudsters and hackers. So against this background, in India, we have this Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. So this is being seen by some as an additional compliance burden on companies. From the compliance perspective, how do you see it as an opportunity for the professionals?
True. Wonderful question in this particular forum, and I should first thanks to Tulsian sir for giving the background to come out with this particular reply to this particular question. It's something like, it's like today we are not working in a closed door dump hub computer, right? Everything is digitally connected across the world, and who is penetrating, who is actually taking control of my system, it's very, very difficult to understand and very, very difficult to imagine, right? Actual fact, there may be millions of such situations. I'm just referring one so that we come into a same platform to understand what's the requirement of this awareness, and followed by this act, its pros and cons and consequences. What actually happens, or what can actually happen? Say in any industry, once again I come back to my own industry, in particularly the refining segment. A particular process where petrol or aviation fuel is moving out, that particular segment has a temperature of around 350 degrees centigrade. If the data is hacked, what Tulchan Saab has just told a couple of minutes back, and the system is locked, the SCADA is basically taken over by the hacker. What they will do, or what they can do, and actually this thing happens, they pull it up, they take the system. On my digital monitor, I see, or my team says, it is 300 degrees centigrade. Actual temperature moves on to 700 degrees centigrade. You can well understand where the petroleum product or gas or something is moving through a boiler, particularly a segment operations, in a velocity or pressure which is 3 or 4 times higher than the atmospheric pressure. If the temperature goes out to 3 times, from 300 to 700, and if it busts out somewhere, some valve, it is not the refining, but around 50 kilometer dia, entire area will be burnt out. But the system, the monitor, they on the screen, they are able to see it is only that desired level. It is within that level, it is moving. Everybody is comfortable. Hacker did their job. The directors get a call, or somebody, the CISO, get a call that, now this is a situation, I have your control. So if you want to protect, please give this ransom or something that like. So this is actually happening. This becomes a global business. So the question comes out that digital data protection, to what extent we are ready? That is also a very important question. Means everybody says, how to know, okay, what will be the consequences? It is something like after the consequences takes place, then only will come to know what is the damage, right? But at the same time, people like us, we are also so generous to share our information. A couple of days back in a shopping mall somewhere in our country, means in Delhi, some company was offering a beautiful color pen to everybody. And there is a small quiz contest. Very easy question. Everybody give the right answer and grab the pen. Very good. What in turn they are providing? They are providing mobile number, they are providing PAN number or other number. PAN or other number. What else you require? What else you require? Every database moves out. We voluntarily give the data. So the government or the administration trying to put a protection from the misuse, abuse, ransom call, everything from a data abuse, we voluntarily provide the data, right? What's the opportunity? Opportunity like, if the company or the corporate or the board take a very sincere decision that yes, there should be an absolute, borders, right? Different check gates, firewalls to protect the data, it provides a reputation. The company which keeps a tag, that information never been compromised in our organization. That's a very big catch line or tagline for the organizations as on date. And the board is actually striving or thriving for that. That data never been compromised in my bank or in our bank or in my organization. None of the customer data is getting shared or compromised. So that's the opportunity. While that, any law has its own compliance cost. It has got difficulties, challenges, auditors, external auditors. But true fact, if we go through this ordeal, it's the advantage in long term for the corporate. Thank you.
Sir, my question, Vinod sir, my question is related to related party transaction. लाइटर नोट में एक चीज़ बोलूँगा कि पहले के ज़माने में जब रिलेटेड पार्टी ट्रांजैक्शन होता था तो लेटर्स और खत के थ्रू होते थे, और जब कुछ टाइम तक खत नहीं आता था और ये डिजिटल ज़माने में सब चीज़ें बदल गई है और खत नहीं आता था तो कहा जाता था कि क्या खता हुई, खताने बंद हो गए, आप ही नाराज़ हैं, डाक खाने बंद हो गए। पर अभी चीज़ें बदल गई है, So, sir, a very important role of corporate governance in general and audit committees in particular in avoiding conflict of interest, particularly in case of related party transactions. My question is to you, sir, what ways can automation and use of AI be helpful in RPT compliances for large entities?
Thank you, Ashish ji. Thanks for asking this very pertinent question. The question can be related to by all the participants here because all of us in some way or the other have to deal with RPTs. So to my mind, there are three aspects of RPT controls, related party transaction controls. A, identification of related parties. B, identification of related party transactions. And C, assuring or ensuring that these transactions are happening on arm's length basis. These are the three parts. Identification of related parties for any large company, particularly listed companies now, identification of RPs, related parties itself has become a tremendous exercise because not only are you talking about related parties of the company, you're talking about RPs of all subsidiaries as well. If you're a holding company, you're talking about RPs of subsidiaries as well, or holding company as well. In my understanding, and I'm sure Rajesh ji and others would confirm it, that for any large company, the list of related parties will run in not less than 1,000 names. We have clients where the RPs are about 2,500. We have some clients where the list of RPs runs to about 4,000 related parties. Roughly about 80% of these are individuals because you're talking about RPs of subsidiaries, subsidiary ka director, director ka bhai, director ki wife, director ka bhai ka whatever. I mean, so list of individuals who are relatives of directors of subsidiaries as well. Identification is quite a tedious exercise. There is no scope for automation there, but this is something which is intuitive. You need to go close by close and identify all the related parties. Once identification of RPs has been done, next thing which is very important, and this is where also every large company will feel the pinch, transactions can happen across the country. If you talk about a large bank, if you talk about let's say ITC, ITC की होटल में एक डायरेक्टर की वाइफ जाके चेक इन कर ली, कैसे राजेश को मालूम चलेगा? राजेश को पूछ के चेक इन करेगी क्या? So that's out of question. So question is, how do we make sure that wherever there's a transaction happening across the country by any related parties, the transaction system first checks whether the party in question is a related party. This is where automation is possible. In our experience, we have been able to implement automation of this second part in one of the largest banks in the country. It's already been implemented. It's already on now. The third part, which is where we are still aspiring, it's aspirational, but we are sure that we can make it happen, is checking the arm's length nature of transaction. Now, arm's length, आज के दिन कैसे check करते हैं आप? Any transaction which is happening, how do you make sure that's arm's length? Well, we run through the list of other transactions. Other transactions of similar nature done with other parties, unrelated parties, is the transaction happening on similar terms. This is also something which can very easily be checked by an artificial intelligence tool. This is work in progress as far as I can see. But I'm sure that this is also capable of being implemented by use of technology. In absence of this automation or use of AI, and I'm sure everyone will affirm that we have no other option but to run to audit committee for ratification of transactions. Transactions can happen without your knowledge. They are happening in every large company. So that's exactly where AI and use of technology can help a lot. Rupanjan and Ashish ji, thank you very much for asking such wonderful questions, but over to both of you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kothari. We are running short of time, but to end this very beautiful discussion, I'll ask one final question to Mr. Tulsian to wrap it up. It's a beautiful question. Like India has made remarkable progress in the last 10 years. So do you think India can also be a leader in world, digital governance? I want a very short and crisp answer from you to conclude you.
Yes.
And just maybe one liner, why do you think that we can do it?
So I'll just give an anecdote, okay? Like UPI. Today, if you really look at, in India, we are doing almost like 46 crore transactions daily. In terms of value, if you make it, it's like 12 lakh crores, okay, every month, UPI transactions. If you look at US, it's only around $4.5 to $5 billion annually. China is close to around, if you do it in India terms, it is around 20 lakh crore annually. So, as I said, population, India, China, both, right? But the speed of change and the speed of adoption in our country is extremely, extremely powerful. So, and I also know certain companies today who have been given the task now by some African countries, okay, to implement UPI in those countries. So I think everyone is looking at India today from a perspective of knowledge base. We have already proven many of our strengths through what we did at the time of COVID. We were the only one, you know, who had all those certificates in the app, made life easy for everyone, right? So we have done many such firsts today. We have enough knowledge, we have enough competence. Possibly larger participation in leadership forum internationally, maybe in cybersecurity, right, from India. And second, helping other countries to build up their capabilities. So this, at these three areas, for sure, I can see that, you know, India can really help and come at a global platform on these things for future.
Thank you very much. Mr. Acharya, do you have a one-liner to add to that? Do you have a one-liner to add to that, how India can be a global leader in digital governance? Just a quick one.
Only just a one-liner. Population and protection for the population. That's possibly is the call for the entire future years. We are for the growth, we are for the Viksit Bharat. Everybody is contributing to the best extent, including our institute and the boards of all the corporates. But at the same time, it requires a complete digital protection. Means while we going ahead with more digitization, every point, every frontier, a proper protection, a proper act, and a support of the act for a person who is infringing the same, right? A disciplinary, exemplary situations that will possibly give a more protection from any abuse or infringement. And that will basically bring us, take us, everybody, to the Laksh called as Viksit Bharat.
Thank you very much. It was a wonderful session, and yes, because of the thanks to UPI transactions, it's been more than a year that I've stopped carrying a purse. So like all transactions from mobile only. So the session has been really like a cherry on the cake. Very fruitful discussion. Thanks to all our panelists, Mr. Acharya, Mr. Tulsian, and Mr. Kothari. And all of you are luminaries and pride of our profession, and we are really happy and lucky to have you and sharing your insights and your expertise with us. And I would also like to thank our program director, C.S. Sandeep Kejriwal, for putting a great show. The volunteers, the anchors for doing their work really great. The support staff, ICSI staff who had been toiling day in day out to make this a great success, and we have really concluded it in a very successful manner. Thanks to all the participants for coming all the way from whichever corner of India you have come from. Thanks for sitting through this entire session, last session, which stood between you and your lunch. Thanks for your patience and listening, and I'm sure a lot of knowledge has been added to your kitty today. And thanks again to all the panelists, and thanks to my co-moderator, Mr. Ashush Karodia. Thank you very much. Bon appetit for your lunch.
Thanks to all the panelists for enlightening us and sharing valuable insights with us. I would now request CS Ashish Karodia to kindly present a memento to CS Vinod Kothari. Now I would request CS Rupanjana De to kindly present a memento to Sri Manoj Tulsian. Last but not the least, I would request CS Ashish Karodia ji again to kindly present a memento to CS Mrityunjay Acharya ji.
Request all the delegates to kindly remain seated for the next 5 minutes, please. Our president will come on the dais and will have a group photo and a blessing to all the volunteers who have contributed their time and made this event a grand success. Thank you.
फ्रेंड्स, आप लोग सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जो फिजिकली यहाँ आए हैं, जो वर्चुअल रजिस्ट्रेशन किए हैं. एंड दिस टाइप ऑफ प्रोग्राम कैन नॉट बी completed without the support of employees of ICSI. And this type of program cannot be completed without the support of our volunteers, our committee members. So I would like to request our group captain, our President Narasimhan sir, to please sir come on the dais and to please bless, my colleague Rupajna De madam, to please come on the dais and please bless all the employee of the EIRO and CCGRT, and also bless the various committee members. So let's first call upon the employee of the EIRO and CCGRT. Please all come. Surya ji, please all come and have a group photograph with all of them. Yes, sir. And then please be ready, all the committee members. Mr. Rajesh Chura, please be seated.
जल्दी करो भाई. Thank you, bhai. Now all the volunteers, Alka Khetawat, Arpan Sen Gupta, Manish Kumar, Binita Pandey, Altaf Kaji, Anand Khandelia, Rahul Joshi, Gopal, Mirnal Kedia, Vivek Misra, Trina Nandi, Aditi Jhunjhunwala, Aruni, अशोक पुरोहित, अतुल लाभ, तरुण चटर्जी, अभिजीत जैन, मोहन जी, प्रतीक, श्वेता साव, मोना कुमारी एंड प्रियंका गुप्ता प्लीज. आशीष
Harry, give them a round of applause, please. Come to this side. Some of you can come to this side.
Now a small gift will be given by the hands of our group captain, Narasimhan sir, our fatherly figure, to all the committee members, please. One by one I am calling the name. Alka Khetawat, please, number 1. एक साथ सब साथ में भेज दो मिश्रा जी, साथ में भेज दो. Alka Khetawat. Thank you, Alka, for supporting it today. So, Arpan Sen Gupta. Who's going to put it on the? Manish Kumar. God bless. Binita Pandey शायद आज नहीं है, सुमित कुमार नहीं है, अल्ताफ काजी. आनंद खंडेलिया, माँ दुर्गा, आनंद खंडेलिया, राहुल जोशी, गोपाल खेतान. मिरनाल यहाँ है क्या? मिरनाल, हाँ. मिरनाल खेतान, मिरनाल केडिया, विवेक साथ यहाँ नहीं है ना? ट्रीना नंदी, ट्रीना, ट्रीना है ना? अदिति झुंझुनवाला, अरुणी नहीं है ना? अतुल्ला भी नहीं है. तरुण सर, तरुण सर, तरुण सर. श्वेता साव, ज्वाइन कर लो तुम भी साथ में। मोना कुमारी, प्रियंका गुप्ता, विवेक मिश्रा। आई थिंक ऑल कवर्ड। भाई तालियों की गूंज कितनी हो कि नेक्स्ट ईयर तक। विवेक मिश्रा डाल दिया होगा सर, डालने। Without the support of the volunteers, this program cannot be so successful, so well organized, and so well arranged. Thanks to all volunteers, sir.
Friends, I think we had a wonderful event today, which is coming to an end. I mean, ultimately anything has to come to an end, and we had a great time here. And we need a round of applause for Sandeep Kejriwal. He's been tirelessly working on this since the time he was appointed as a program director. And of course, his teammate, Rupanjana as well, both from Calcutta. They've done a great job. I'm sure all of you enjoyed the sessions, which were very fruitful. I think I was there. I could not be there for all the sessions, but I did manage to peep in for a while, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks a ton for all your support, and keep supporting us in future as well. Thank you.
Thank you all. Please join for lunch.